I'd never wanted to be a footballer. I tried really hard at that point in time not to be a professional footballer and failed. When you go through traumas and extreme things very young, it becomes a norm. You've got to live life and love it. They ain't getting enough rest. It doesn't matter how good the medics are. It really doesn't. They're human beings, right? If you spend $1 billion, 1.2 billion on those players, it has to work. They must get top 4 this season.
Hello everybody, and a warm welcome then to In The Zone, brought to you by Gambling Zone, your trusted online gambling comparison site. My name's Manish Bhasin, and in this series I talk to some of the biggest names in sport, charting their successes, their challenges that they've faced in their field to becoming at the very top of their profession. Now this episode is slightly different because we've got the Premier League season to look forward to. It's just around the corner. So my guest today is a former footballer. Described as a gifted winger. He enjoyed a successful 20-year playing career, both in England and in Scotland, enjoyed spells at Chelsea and at Everton. And since then, he's carved out a brilliant reputation and a well-deserving one as being one of the best pundits around. He's a man of very many dimensions because if he's not spinning plates, he's also spinning vinyls as a DJ. He's the one and only Pat Nevin. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Manish. Good to be here.
Lovely to see you. How you been?
Well, it's been really busy this summer. I've had an incredible summer. This is not Scottish tan.
Well, climate change, you don't know these days.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's been really busy. There was Euros, obviously, over there for them. It was a big end to last season as well for everyone. In the midst of the Euros, I did a few things which we'll go into later, including some DJing over in Munich, which was wild.
Yeah.
Flew back for the daughter's wedding. I thought it might be the sensible thing for the father of the bride to actually be there.
Might get you some brown clothes.
And flew back again.
Yeah.
And then after that, there's been quite a few things after that, but a couple of holidays. So just back a couple of days now. And it's here. The season's here waiting for us to start again.
Dare I say a pre-season that you've enjoyed, unlike many as a player?
I'm a bit weird that way. I liked pre-season. Because it's a bit like the school SWAT.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
they like the exams.
Yeah.
Well, I was a bit like that with pre-season because I'd been a distance runner as a kid. So pre-season's a bit of I just cruised along, and when you're light, you can run. In the old days, you used to run up and down sand dunes.
Yeah.
That's easier when you're like 9 stone as opposed to 13. you don't actually fall in. So I loved pre-season. I'd do a pre-season as well. So I kind of liked it, but 20 years of it, maybe it's losing its sheen at the end of it.
I bet your teammates loved you for someone who just used to say, "Oh, pre-season, take me there."
Oddly enough, I came at the cusp of a time where I think the game was just beginning to get a bit more professional. There was a big drinking culture, and still there for a number of people when I was playing. But there were a number of us that came into it with a much more professional attitude. So we weren't big drinkers. We made sure we took care of ourselves. And it did annoy the older players. I'll be honest with you. However, there were usually a few of us at every team that were thinking, no, this is a decent business, this.
Yeah.
Make the best out of it.
In fact, nowadays, it's interesting because pre-season, they're involved in tournaments, which brings them up to speed in many respects, which curtails that kind of downtime that they get these days. And I know they're all looked over, even in their downtime, the players, in terms of preparation for the new season. And any kind of foot off the pedal, the club already know about it. Let's talk about this season then. What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, first of all, to go from your point that you've made, it's really important. They ain't getting enough rest. It doesn't matter how good the medics are. It really doesn't. They're human beings, right? And they get tired and they get injured and they need recovery time. And if you don't give them enough recovery time or don't protect them the right way when they come into the season, you will see it. You will feel it. You saw it in the Euros. There was a lot of brilliant players who were a bit rubbish. And that's not because they were rubbish. It's because they were exhausted, playing with injuries, and they've gone to the well too often. And it's very, very clear now. If you listen to, they're getting over serious about it, FIFA Pro and the PFA, big on another one of my old hats that I used to have, I was PFA chairman. They're asking too much to the players now, especially the very top ones. And it's beginning to have a very obvious effect. And you look at the pre-season here, how many players have already injured? I mean, Manchester United in particular are having a bad time already. But I know a lot of the players, they haven't allowed those injuries to recover completely. And they're back into it again. Because a few were playing the Olympics, for goodness sake.
Oh, no.
And then you had the Euros, a lot of them are both over in South America, they had the massive competition there. And you have to remember, it's not just this summer. It's the summer before and the summer before. So the point is, that's all going to have an effect on this season in the Premier League. The bad news is it might affect the quality sometimes. Good news is, brilliant games. Honestly, because what you want is mistakes. Last season in the Premier League was unbelievable. I don't know what you thought, I don't know what listeners and viewers thought, but some of the games in the last minute turnovers, I've never known a season like it. And all the years I've been playing, watching, covering football, the Premier League last season was extraordinary for these late turnovers, late goals, the percentages which people know about. And the one thing you need to go into, late goals, that are going to happen again.
They are. And obviously the contributing factor to that is the additional time, which has now taken on a whole new stratospheric level of 10 minutes maybe on either half.
And it's what people forget is they say, well, here's the percentage, it's 10 more minutes, or 15 more minutes per game you're sometimes getting right, which is a lot. But it's more than that. It's the 10 minutes or 15 minutes when people are most tired, which is when there's more space, which is when the creative players have fun and can create. So you're not just getting the normal percentage more goals, you're getting the normal percentage and a bit on top of that as well. So that's why it's really happened last season, one of the reasons why it's happened last season, and it ain't going to stop.
So is Manchester City the team to stop? I mean, that's the obvious question and starting point. Obviously, they've won 4 in a row, 6 of the last 7 Premier League titles. We don't know if this is going to be Pep Guardiola's final season in charge, but are they very much the team to be got at?
Well, at the moment, Arsenal have got very, very close the last couple of seasons. But it's a little bit like Groundhog Day. Still Man City, you need to beat. But they are getting older each season. And Kevin De Bruyne, one of the greatest players we've ever seen in the English game, he's getting older. He's picking up some injuries. He's still brilliant. They have got others. Obviously, we know that Foden can come in and do that sort of thing. But, eventually, you have to adapt it. You have to change it. As we speak just now, I don't think you can really tell for sure. I think if Man City stay with what they've got, it might not be enough. I think they need a little bit more. Obviously, Alvarez is gone. It's a big thing. I think that's freed up a little bit of money. Now, any Crystal Palace fans listening, get your fingers in your ears because
they're going to say not again. They've already lost Elise.
Exactly. Yeah. But Elise goes to Bayern Munich. Eze's a better player. And Eze, for me, at any of the top clubs, revolutionises them. Any of the top 4, 5, 6 clubs, they are far better teams when they've got Eze on their team. And I would not be shocked if Man City made a bit of a bid last season for him. They don't forget him. And his numbers last season were fabulous. Last couple of seasons for Eze have been incredible. The numbers, he was a 1 in 4, 1 in 5 scorer. And remember, creation's his big thing. Last season before, numbers through the roof, as were Elise's. So, in the end, if you said to me, Man City again, I'd say Man City plus Eze, yeah.
Man City without Eze?
Maybe.
Okay, let me add something else to the mix then, Pat. They've got the hearing to the 115 charges in November. Now, it's going to take time, it's going to take weeks for that to come to a conclusion. The can might be kicked further down the road. But could that force City's players to take their eye off the ball? Because it's going to be quite a big deal.
It won't force the players, it won't affect him. I mean, we're a damned selfish bunch. We got on.
You're in it for yourself.
Well, you kind of have to be tunnel visioned.
Yeah.
I mean, you ask top athletes at any level in any sport, look, there's things going on out there. It might annoy you a little bit, but the wages get paid and you get a game, you perform. That's your job. The other stuff will be kind of backgroundy, but that's your job. You need to be able to cope with this. You need to be able to compartmentalise. I mean, one of the great things about football is that people forget is the compartmentalisation of family life to what you're doing on the pitch. You could be going through traumas, but you have to be able to do it on the pitch. Players are resilient. I mean, really resilient. So don't worry about the players. However, the club, now, if they're having real difficulties and they have to either not spend what they want to spend or maybe even sell, as some clubs have had to do, that changes everything again. But, I don't think they believe that's going to happen. I think they believe in, you want a creative winger, but these days you also need a creative accountant. I think they believe in the creative. Well, creative's not the right word, but a talented accountant. Yeah. And I think that's what they're hoping for just now. But nobody knows how that's going to. I mean, it's again one of my background things. I'm so interested in this because that's what I studied to degree levels, economics and accounts. So I'm very interested in that sort of area. But you can't tell what's going on because none of us have got the information or the real numbers, or So, and that's why you have to kind of put it to one side and say, right, I don't think it's going to go and hit them now, because if they do get hit badly, the charges, in comparison to what Everton done, it's almost unthinkable what could happen.
Yeah, there is no precedence to look back on. I suppose Swindon in '92 was the only one, right?
Yeah, that amount is extraordinary. Whether
that was a double relegation, but on appeal, there was only one relegation that was added to it.
And you wonder, I mean, I think it would be bigger than that. I mean, and this is an extreme scenario, but if you are a club like, just let's say it's Man City, but it could be any club, and you're sort of blown out of the water and you're not in the league anymore and we don't want you. Well, what's wrong with you saying, well, okay, we don't want you either. We're going to set up a Super League. Be careful. Be very, very careful what you do, because the Premier League, it's the top league in the world, and it really is. And I know there's, Serie A's had a good, La Liga's had a really good season, but the Premier League's still the league. Be careful. That can change. And some of the things that we're going through just now, with the financial situations, we've not been able to invest in it. And I'm very much, I like a little bit of equality in life. That's my politics there. But if you actually stop people being able to get the best players in the league, you no longer are the best league.
Actually, talking about PSR, I think that's contributed to what has been a relatively quiet summer on the transfer front, although you have mentioned Julian Alvarez. Conor Gallagher's the only other really notable exception.
Yeah, I was looking through it. I'm sure everyone does it. This is a guilty secret, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every morning you go in, ins and outs, transfer ins and outs.
And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you're on holiday in Greece or wherever, I'm still looking to see if Leicester are buying anyone. Or
Exactly. And it's trying to work it out. I mean, some of the clubs in the Premier League have made massive changes. But it's been in numbers. It's been curtailing the squad. It's been kind of almost an accountancy thing with a lot of the clubs. And I can see why they're doing it. But the big ones haven't happened yet. I still think they might. I still think there's a few. And I think Man City have got one more to come.
Yeah, but as you say, it just takes one big one for the domino effect to happen.
Well, enough,
maybe Alvarez might be the one now.
Alvarez, then Fulkrug, he comes over West Ham. And then you're thinking, right, okay, who's looking for a centre forward? Everyone, so, as they always are. So then that actually, the floodgates may well start to open now. And of course, remember, this is always, fans I think sometimes from the outside think, why are you leaving it so late? I mean, that's terrible business. Clubs aren't doing that. That's the selling clubs that's doing that. That's the agent of the player that's doing that. You want brinkmanship. And if you can get that brinkmanship, so it all could still happen, and I don't think we're past the dangerous phase for teams like Palace.
Yeah, Arsenal made 1 or 2 acquisitions, obviously big one in defence, but they haven't got that number 9 at the minute. And that's. Do you still expect Arsenal to be City's big challengers?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do.
Their closest challenges,
Yeah, Calafiore's a really good player, and they've been watching him for a year.
Yeah.
He had a good World Cup, not in the game that I went to see him, but they didn't play well that day. That was in Berlin. And I have to say, last season, I remember writing a column and saying, if Arsenal get a real out-and-out centre-forward and they can allow other players to play where they're at their best, that actually could be enough to beat City. Groundhog Day. Again. I'm feeling the same way. I mean, they did share the goals around. Saka gets a load of goals. You understand that. Kai Havertz, I've been such a fanatic of. And there was a period where
Have you always been that way?
Yes. Yeah. At Chelsea, when he was there getting a lot of stick, and I'm thinking, I think he's technically one of the best players in the league. And I don't understand why people... And the reason being, and if I can be a wee bit selfish for a minute to tell you why, right?
Go on.
In your intro, and it still hurts all these years later, you introduced me as a winger. I'd never played in the wing before I turned professional. I'd never played there. I had to learn how to do that, right? And it's weird you then have to have a whole career stuck in a position that's not your position. Kai Havertz is the same. He played all that time with Chelsea centre forward. He's not great. He's not terrible. He's not great when he's back to the goal. But he's unbelievable going that way and running onto things and seeing things. And it's like saying to a player, like, we know you're not very good at that, but play there all the time and then judging him. The other one, who was the other one? It was, I remember I went to see Joe Linton before he went to
Newcastle.
And he stuck him up front and I'm going, what's he doing there? He's not good with his back to the goal. And it's quite a common thing. You see that a lot. I mean, I'm a great friend of mine, James McFadden, you might remember Everton. He came through at Motherwell when I was chief executive there. And he just wanted to play up front. And I'm going, Faddy, you're one of the best that I know of running at players. Why are you taking that away? But, you end up in different positions. Anyway, that's what I've got with Arsenal. That's the problem. Havertz is fabulous. Really fabulous. All the players around them will tell you. Watch players. This is the giveaway when you're watching football. Don't always watch how they get the ball or whatever. Watch how people give them the ball. And they'll tell you a lot about them. And with Havertz, they look up. Everyone looks, give them it. Now, there's other good players there and they get it as well. And they're very good players at Arsenal going forward. But if they can get it to him in those areas, they do, because they know that he links well and sort of lays it off well. He's got some beautiful turns. The World Cup one, that turn and drag back. I mean, for goodness sake.
Oh, no, it was insane.
It's just genius.
Yeah.
So
I had to watch it a few times.
to see what he did.
To see how he did it.
Yeah. So, I can prove it. I've got the documented evidence. I've written for a long, long time, especially when it's at Chelsea. You don't know what you've got here.
So hang on. So
get him back to number 10.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What, centrally?
So get him coming from behind.
Yeah.
Now, so if you play
as a link guy with the striker,
more an arriver.
Okay.
So he can link, but he's not David Silva. He's not Kevin De Bruyne. He's not that player. But maybe Frank Lampard.
Yes.
Arriving late.
Yeah, coming late into the box.
Coming late, brilliantly, doing the sensible. If you can do it in one touch or two touches, do it then. Lamps, the amount of goals he scored. If ever have a look, I did. Sad person that I am. I went through every goal he'd ever scored. That took a wee while. It took a long time. Because I wanted to know his percentages of goals he scored were first touch. It was extraordinary. It was nearly 70%.
Wow.
So, just one touch. So, and Havertz is a bit like that. If he scores, it's generally one touch because he's coming onto it. But also, his link-up plays one touch. So you almost don't notice it because it's so perfectly timed and his vision's good. So, a very special player, but you're not getting the best out of him yet.
Right. Okay. But look, there are reports. Gabriel Jesus, who went back to one of his former clubs in Brazil over the summer, he looks re-energised. He might be the guy who, again, leads the line for Arsenal. If Kai Havertz is chosen as the false nine, can Arsenal win the Premier League?
They can. Yes, the answer is they can. If I had to really push it, I wouldn't be putting my money on it at the moment, but it's capable. Look, it was only 2 points last year.
Yeah.
It's nothing. I mean, it's at one game, one bad game. There was that little period around about Christmas time. Arsenal had a real, was it a game against Fulham, I think I can remember, and you thought, oh, they've gone. Actually, they came back. It was brilliant. But if they didn't have that wee wobble, remember that game? It was, I think it was one decent performance in the team. Declan Rice played really well, but it looks as if he's playing against the opposition on his own. The whole team had fallen. But they got it back. They need a little bit of depth and hopefully another striker. And if you get the striker in there who's got the technical ability, because they need the technical ability to play with Arsenal, not just an out-and-out striker. If you've got that, you're right there with it. You're right there with City, absolutely.
Okay, so the usual two at the top, City, Arsenal. Who else do you see getting in the mix, if at all? Is there one for you, a realistic contender?
Well, this is when it gets good. I really like this because, I mean, last season, I thought the kind of battle to try and not be in the top four was quite good.
Spurs didn't want it. They don't want it.
Yeah. You have it. Villa, who were great, and then they fall away and then come back. Newcastle, we've definitely won. There you go.
So, your injuries were pretty bad for them.
Yeah, and they weren't ready for Champions League. And I went to a lot of Newcastle games last season, and that was the problem. It was just the too many players, and you could see Eddie was thinking, I can't play him, and particularly up front. It was a nightmare for him. But looking at them, Spurs, I'm biased. See when you're biased? Hand up, right? Biased. I love Ange. I love Ange Postecoglou. Watched him all the time in Scotland, obviously. Covered a lot of games in Scotland. And what he'd done at Celtic, I'll tell you why I like him. Right? See when I'm watching games and I'm listening to a commentator or a pundit or whatever, I want him to do something. One specific thing. I want him to tell me something I don't know. That's what I want. Because when someone keeps on telling you what you know, you go, yeah, fair enough. I know that. You know, it's nice to get your ego massaged, but I know that. And then Ange comes in, and I watched him the first couple of games with the Celtic, and I thought, oh, no. Like that's never going to work. That's just no chance. It's just bizarre. And then 5 or 6 games in, you're going, oh, he knows something we don't know. And it's a lovely moment. And so he was brilliant with Celtic, and he had the players, and he brought particularly Far Eastern players he brought in from particularly Japan, some from South Korea as well.
Kyogo, one of them, wasn't he?
Kyogo was phenomenal. I mean, he's absolutely, but don't take anything away from the others. I mean, he got 3, so he knows that market. Now, take him to Spurs last season. And I was down at an early game fairly early, it was against Manchester United. And honestly, of all the years of going to watch Spurs, I don't know if I felt a better atmosphere than that day. Because the first Spurs fans, they're worried. They've been off the pace with Arsenal for a long time. It's been painful, the beautiful new stadium. And then suddenly, this excitement, this joy, this devil-may-care madness. And it was working. And it was working for a variety of reasons, but it was Spursy in that other way, not in the chuck it and throw it away at the end Spursy, in the we want to play football. Spurs have always been an open attacking side. That's their DNA. That's kind of why I've always liked their style. And this was it, and the fans loved it, didn't they? They bought into it. I was looking around, and I was doing the commentaries, and I was looking around, and there was grown men close to crying. Because of the joy they were getting out of it. Now,
it's because of what's gone on before, right?
Exactly. And I haven't said that. They had Josie. They'd had a couple of kind of very unspurs type managers. Yeah. So it was a lovely moment. And they were clever enough to know, look, it's not going to last full this season. It's his first season. It's the Premier League. It's not actually Ange's team last season. But it should start to be his team this season. Now, I've looked at the buys.
They've been fairly underwhelming, right?
Don't know the young
Archie Gray is look, he's up and coming. Yeah. We know what he's done at Leeds. He's fantastic.
So he's the one.
Yeah, but Werner and Bergvall is the other couple of.
Yeah,
actually, you might like this one. They've been linked with Eza from Palace.
Again, anyone who takes him. I mean, funnily enough, Gallagher would have been great for him. Gallagher is so Ange Postecoglou, it's unbelievable. He's perfection for that style of play. But they've got Min-Hyuk Yang as well. Wide player, attacking player. Now, I'm not saying, hey, he's going to do it. It's a big jump. But look at that market. He's got.
Well, they've gone into that market already with Son, haven't they?
Exactly. So look at that market. You've got Ange, who knows the market better than anyone else, and he maybe before that transfer window's closed, watch out what he'll do. I still think it's a big call for Spurs. It's a big jump. But there was a period last season that if you said, who do you want to go see this week? And I could choose anyone, it would have been Spurs. That's a great thing to say about any team, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to say, I actually made my first ever trip to the new stadium only last season, and they've been there 3 or 4 already for the City game towards the end of the campaign. The atmosphere is sensational. I mean, everybody's been telling me about it. And while, of course, Spurs were kind of in the mix and Europe was there, it was just, they're up against it always against City and Haaland, of course. But it felt like what the Emirates was like 3 years ago when Arteta was just getting hold of the job. Do you know what I mean? That belief.
I think you've got the exact analogy. I think it's perfect. Remember when the Emirates started, it was a library.
It was awful.
It was a library. It was awful. Won't hide it. The Emirates is there now. It's brilliant. It's great.
It is bouncing.
It's absolutely rocking.
Yeah.
I think it's taken Spurs a little bit less time. It took Arsenal to get the new stadium going. So, yeah, it's really looking forward to seeing what they're doing. But that is the point of it. So after the top 2, you start looking, and it's so tough to call. And sometimes when you've got a tough one to call, you get a surprise.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the one I called a surprise I thought was going to happen last season. And halfway through it nearly came off. West Ham had done really well. And then because of the European stuff, and it fell away a wee bit. And it was a real shame. But Moyes had done a good job for a good period of time.
Yeah.
I'm
glad they announced his departure before the last couple of games, because he needed that send-off and that feeling of, he was worthy of the job he'd done.
I think, again, hands up when you've got a bias. Moyes and I have been mates since I was 14. We played the same boys club together. But he's a top quality manager, and the biggest stitch-up, one of the biggest stitch-up I've ever known in professional football is what Manchester United done to him. Told him, look, you've got 3 or 4 years to build this back up again, and gave him 9 months. I mean, that's just nonsense. In hindsight, it sounds that, but I knew it even at the time. But he's shown himself a very capable manager again, but there are limitations if you've not got the big money.
No. You said, obviously, it's an open race as to who will try and challenge Arsenal and Manchester City. And you've got a bias for Spurs. You've spoken about that. I know you have a bias for a West London club in Chelsea for obvious reasons. What a few months for them. In fact, a couple of years under Todd Bowley. I have to ask you, what do you make of where they're at right now? It feels like we're into another 3rd consecutive transitional season for the Blues.
Right, okay, so my thinking was, it was a tough time to take over. There were sanctions on the club. It was awful. You had to let a lot of players go because you're not allowed to sign them during sanctions. The best actual defender, not the best defensive player, defender in the world was probably Tony Rudiger. They had to let him go. They had to let a lot of players go, and it was a mess. You had all the structure of the club cleared out and a new one come in. There was nothing much left there except a team that had, let's be honest, won the Champions League the year before. They weren't bad.
I know.
So,
mind you, it seems like a long time ago.
It's a massively long time ago. It really does feel like it. So you've got a whole new system, and they've decided. It took me about 4 or 5 months to figure out what they were doing, and then when it clicked, I went, got it, right, and we have got it.
You understand what they're doing?
Yeah. It's
because it feels like they've ripped up that kind of template that everybody goes with. They've released a very successful manager who was getting a tune out of the players at the end of last season. Now look, I know it might have been more his decision or their decision, we don't know, but it was a mutual passing of the ways with Mauricio Pochettino, as it was said. The releasing of homegrown players for pure profit. Again, that's because of the current regulations, and Enzo's spoken about that. But they're signing players who are young, unknown to the wider footballing public. They're going with a raw group of players. Is it going to get them success in the next year?
Right, so what I thought, as soon as I started it, 4 or 5 months in it, I thought, got you. I know what you're doing. You should have done it cheaper than you did it. $1 billion's a lot. But you're getting the best young players around the planet that are available, the ones that look as if, from the numbers, and it is mostly data, from the numbers, who looks as if they're going to be the best in 2, 3, 4 years' time. That's fine. If you spend $1 billion, 1.2 billion on those players, it has to work within a couple of seasons. This is the end of a couple of seasons. This season coming is when you judge completely. I think I've been incredibly fair, saying that, okay, it's tough times. There was times you thought they were going to be, having spent that money, having come in a club that had been champions of Europe, and you're in the bottom, you're looking like the bottom half of the table. That's mismanagement beyond belief, unless you have an extreme plan, which they have, right? So they've got an extraordinary plan. But if it doesn't bear fruit this season, it's looking awfully like an extraordinary bad plan. And that's it. Because you can't say, oh, it's okay, it'll work in 4 or 5 years. In the long term, it'll work. Hey, we're all dead in the long term. It's not what football and sport's about. It's all about making sure you get success in a sensible period of time. So I would, if it's not working this season, and there's a million things that can make it not work, players from all over the world, the system that they don't necessarily fit in with, but they've all been data bought. You've not got footballing thought in there. That's what you've got a manager to do, right? Losing Pochettino, this is weird, it sounds strange to say. Who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter who the manager is. It really doesn't. They've got a manager in just now. They'll move him on in 6 months if it's not going quite well and bring somebody else in. It's not important. They just want somebody to meld it. So it's not a manager, it's a coach.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a coach, right? So we get caught up in this concept we've got in sort of British football. And it's, oh, the manager does this and he pulls everything together and he gets that.
But this has been a while in coming now, hasn't it? I mean, this has come from the continent, really.
Yes. And Liverpool have partially done it, but they had Klopp as well. Very, very good at it. So, but they were melding the two. You know, they're purely data-led, but also with a manager that bought in, stroke coach who bought in. This is, along with Brighton, the most extreme version I've seen. And I'm thoroughly intrigued by it. But if you are, like the questions you asked before, the legacy fans, he says, grimacing at that phrase.
They've been on a journey, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's a journey.
Yeah, I know you like that phrase.
Not my favourite phrase. But they're thinking, well, wait a minute, as you say, the players that come through, if you're a football fan and you love your team, what's better than a player coming through the ranks? That's why they love JT. That's why they love the ones that come through that one. And he's one of ours. That's the phrase, right? And the ones of ours have all been hoofed and continue to. And by the way, is it 180 million? They've managed to get in 2 years. Well done. That business-wise, that's great. But does that keep a certain group of homegrown fans on board? No, it doesn't. It annoys them to hell because they want. If you put a bunch of young players that you developed in and you weren't winning, you kind of grimace and bear it. If you get rid of all your homegrown players, bring a bunch of youngsters from all over the planet and spend £1 billion and don't win, no, you won't. But you won't put up with that, and rightly so. But the finishing bit and the most important bit to remember is they clearly don't care about that. They're not looking at the group in the stands. This is a worldwide thing. They need to make sure that they can sell this club as a worldwide franchise, as it were. And it needs to be successful to do that. They must get top 4 this season. Must.
With a manager who's never managed in the Premier League or any top flight division. Yes, he did brilliantly with Leicester in the Championship. And yes, he's been Pep's assistant and did a very good job and highly rated by City. But as a man on his own, has not managed in the top flight before. And you're saying Clear Lake have to show progress or a top 4 finish this season. That's a lot to put at Maresca's door, though, isn't it?
He must know it's not at his door all the time, though. Because that's what happens with Chelsea before and also Chelsea now. You move the next one in. Like Busters, there'll be another one along in a minute. Right? So Maresca goes to get somebody else in. There's lots of good technical coaches out there. There's a lot of them. You're not wanting a manager. You're not wanting anything different than that. You want a decent technical coach who's not bad with the personalities. That's not a lot to ask, right? So he's got a great chance. He's got some fabulous players. He has got the joy of Cole Palmer landing in his lap, which is brilliant for any manager. And with that group of players there and their abilities, you should be able to, at the very worst, be knocking on the door at top 4. At the very worst. Problem with Chelsea is, was a game up at, again, against Arsenal last season, 5. And you honestly, if you're a Chelsea fan, you were like that. It was horrible. And then what happened after that? They went in the most brilliant run to the end of the season. They looked fabulous. So they're a hard one to call, and they may well be the most interesting. I would say Spurs are the most entertaining. Chelsea is the most interesting story this coming season, and I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I bet. So to surmise, you reckon if it's not top 4, they have to review their approach?
I think if it's not top 4, I think critics can turn around and say, what the hell are you doing? You've had 3 years, you've had $1 billion plus, and there's teams that are spending a fraction of what you've spent, and they're getting better positions than you, and they're winning cups, etc. Come on, let's be fair about this. You don't get. We need to judge them by some sort of fairness. Now, there's been plenty of fairness up until now. 2 seasons, young players get it. No. Now's the time to go. I know it's a long time ago. It's a different time. I was 20 when I was player of the year at Chelsea. 20 is fine. 21, 22. You're now in the meat of your career. So the time's gone now. Now's the time to actually do it. Now's the time to say, this is what we wanted to do, and we're presenting it to you. It has to work this season, or else it's been a failure.
Okay, if Chelsea are looking upwards or hoping to this season, another of your former clubs, Everton, will be hoping not to look over their shoulder. It got very close to the bone, I suppose, 2 seasons ago when they got survival on that last day of the season. Final season at Goodison Park is going to be full of emotional, full of sentiment. But there's still a grey cloud hanging over that club, isn't there, with the latest buyout collapsing? Yeah,
that was, harsh. I didn't want the 777 to happen. I wasn't comfortable with it at all. I'm looking into it in some depth with a number of hats on at the moment, but it is slightly worrying. The upside is big new stadium waiting. That can be an albatross. It can also be a good selling point. How many people from around the world would like to own a top level football club that's infrastructure's sorted, and you can build it? It's got a brilliant fan base sitting waiting. It's not going to move, it's not going to budge, it's not going to decrease in any way at all. There's a lot there to sell, and that has to happen. But if it doesn't happen fairly soon, the next year or so, it could get very difficult. The saving grace is that if we were talking about Chelsea being this very modern, data-driven, business-like kind of thing, forget that. Sean Dyche. This is how it works.
It's the eyes and ears.
This is why it works. This is why they're safe. And for whatever you think of Sean's style, and it wouldn't be me. I love tiki-taka football. Yeah, great. I love certain types of players. You won't be surprised.
But you like variety, surely.
Yes, I might get that. But I watched what he's done and thought there was no other way to save that club, and he was the best man at the right time at the right place. And what a tune he got at Everton. Now, in the end, was it 40? I'm trying to think. Was it 40 points? 40 points, right? That's amazing. Considering that's before deduction, that's after deductions. This is a team that were absolute stick on to go down. With the limitations in the squad, I thought it was extraordinary. I'm not going to say he should have got manager of the season last season, but my goodness, he should have been in the discussion. So you've got Dyche there. They've had Anana's gone now. That's a big one for them. And in other clubs, I would sit there worrying, going, "Oh God, some of your best players are going." And I look at it and think, nope, in Sean we trust. Yeah. Because how long did he do it? At Burnley. It was incredible, wasn't it? That team had no right to be up there for that long. Absolutely no right in so many ways. But I loved them for it. And at Everton, all sorts of things could happen to Everton. The worst thing that could happen is they lose Sean Dyche. That's the worst thing. Second worst thing is they don't get Bayern next year or so. But the basics are there. There's a debt, which is the problem. But Everton at the moment, tell me, when I look at, because you say Everton, You've not said the R word yet, right?
No.
But I know you're suggesting it. The possibility. Right.
Yeah, I mean, but that will always be if there's future uncertainty behind who's going to own the club.
And you're right. But see, if you look at it another way, which is the way I look at it, it's, there's 20 clubs in the league, yeah? 8 ain't going nowhere. There's 8 at the top, they're not going down. However bad Man United get, Chelsea get, Newcastle, they're going to be all right. Then you look down below that, there's 12 left. I looked last season's West Ham, Palace, Brighton, Bournemouth downwards, right? And the 3 that have come up. That's 12 clubs. 3 of them are going to go down this season. You have got a 1 in 4 chance of getting relegated this season.
Yeah.
And maybe slightly more than that with 1 or 2 of them. But in reality, over a period of time, with the figures, unless you've got an amazing manager or you get a sugar daddy or whatever, sugar country, you're in danger all the time. So see from West Ham down, and I have to see West Ham's there as well. Although I don't think they will be in danger this year.
The recruitment's been actually quite impressive.
I've liked what they've done. And, again, I won't be biased because I like Moisey, but it was the right time for both, I think. But from that, if you have a bad start this season, Bournemouth had a bit of a bad...
they took 10 games to win his first one, I think.
Exactly. So you don't do that too often in the Premier League. No. You're not going to get...
I think they've got a very ambitious chairman in Bill Foley.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, I look at them, but look at Brighton's, the way they are going to be arguably the best organised club there is in the Premier League.
And they have a 31-year-old in the dugout.
It's extraordinary. And it's... I mean, I love it. They've got Billy Gilmore in the midfield. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Interesting if he stays on, though. Because his position is... I'm not quite sure whether it's...
And that's a tricky thing, though. Because in a way, people hear me talking sometimes about Chelsea and about, the manager, does it really matter? And it sounds a little bit cutting and a little bit dismissive. Kind of almost feel the same way about Brighton. There are a lot of good technical managers out there. You could look around the world and the names that a lot of fans don't know, but they're good technical managers.
Is this as good as it's ever been in terms of technical managers?
I think there is, but the style's going in and out at the moment. Obviously, Spanish is very stylish at the moment, understandably so, but the style's going in and out. But there are, the teaching of coaching is extraordinary. The opportunities for coaches. I mean, a lot of great friends of mine that I played with, that's what they have done. They've gone into that direction. Now, they may not become a first-team coach. They might be at different other areas. But when you talk to them, when you talk to them off camera, when they're on camera, they'll talk about, low blocks and all that
high
sort of
turnovers.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. The usual stuff. Transitions, I told you this before. Do you know what a transition is? Because what you need to get these words and you need to be able to translate them into normal words. Right?
Yeah.
Transition. You've given the bleeding ball away again. That's what transition is, right?
Yeah.
So, but they will talk to you at a better level than that and tell you, right, this is technically what we're doing just now, what we've learned and how the game's moved in different directions. And one of the best things, it's amazing when you talk to really interesting managers because they are at the peak or at the cutting edge of the new thinking, like inverted fullbacks, all that sort of stuff, all the usual stuff that's kind of all happened before, but they're at the cutting edge of it. And everyone at the cutting edge is also looking back. They're all doing that because you'll find things there. Many, many years ago, I watched the end of this season in the Champions League twice in the 4 last games that I watched, and the teams played 4-2-4. Nobody plays 4-2-4.
You get slightly outrun in midfield for a start.
Well, that's the concept.
Yeah.
But Real Madrid were doing it.
Yeah.
They won. So always be aware. It's not always aligned that way. So you have to be, that's all interesting stuff. So there's good coaches, good technical coaches, and it changes.
You mentioned the R word with Everton. Is that ultimately at the back of your mind?
Always. Yeah, because I'm a realist. Another R word. Yeah, it has to be. Because in the simplest terms, player for player, they are not near the top half of the table. They've got more out of it because of team ethic, because of the structure what the manager's put in place. But player for player, no, they have to fight it. They have to show something else. And at the moment, he's managed to get that tune out of them, Sean. So But have they 2 or 3 injuries? Calvert-Lewin.
He's in the final year now.
Yeah.
They find themselves in this really odd situation, or I should say awkward situation. He's not going to carry a fee if they don't sell him now.
Exactly.
So what do they do?
It's incredibly hard because he's got the best leap of any player in the league, right? So he's the flick-ons and headers. He's now playing for a team that suits him to do that, right? Other teams won't play that way. So for him, he might be in the best place. But I look at it and think, with the injuries, is it worth? As someone who loves Everton, I'd like to keep him. Right, full stop. I want to keep him. But you're doing a business as well, and you're thinking, well, it depends really on what you're offered. If someone said he's a big centre forward, he's a young man, he's been an England international, he can lead the line, and he might not get injured next season. Big might there. And someone comes in and offers you 100 million, you take it, don't you? Whereas someone comes in and offers you 40, not so sure. So in the end, it comes down to that, doesn't it? Who comes in and offers you that? You might actually have to allow him to run it down, because that big money move is not what many clubs in the world want to do with a player who's had that many injuries.
Tough one.
Tough gig though. But that's football. I've been an executive before at a club.
Yeah.
You've got all these balls now and you need to figure it out.
Across Stanley Park, there is Liverpool.
Yeah.
You say Chelsea, perhaps the most fascinating to watch unfold this season. Is Liverpool the biggest unknown quantity in the Premier League this campaign?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The post-Jurgen thing is so interesting. I mean, I was there the week that Jurgen said he was leaving, so he got out. So I was at the game that weekend. And honestly, it was like, you could almost like they'd lost their great uncle, their favourite great uncle. Everybody in that stadium, it was like aghast, shock, tears. Wow. But they're going to have to be different. I think they're going to stylize. Style's going to be different as well. Jurgen did some job in adapting, because he had to adapt a lot of things. Think of the forward lines that were successful from. They're all gone.
Yeah.
Apart from Salah,
yeah.
They're all gone. The midfield, kind of gone too. So half of the job's been done. Now, I say Jurgen done a great job. He did a great job keeping them competitive. I'm not sure he went and got all those players. I'm pretty sure he didn't. So they've got people that have been doing that job, and they've managed to get the right types of players in. They're short at the moment. They need a bit more. As we speak, they've got nobody.
The only side in the Premier League without a signing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's nothing.
But mind you, Zubimendi looks like he might be coming. Defensive midfielder, very good, aggressive. Just what they need, really.
I'm 100%. Because we always thought it was going to be Trent was going to be the one to walk in there.
Yeah.
And he walks in there. They've got great cover at fullback now and right fullback now. So Trent walks in there, job done. It's not really looked like that, because Trent is fabulous vision, as we all know, but he's got the weakness. And the weakness is he doesn't read to play defensively as well as many others before him have. Nobody can do everything, right? So that might be one of the big things, but they need a bit more. They were a good distance behind in the end last season. They did fall away. I think there's a bit more needed there. A tiny bit more. Actually, I'll rephrase that. A bit more creativity in the middle to front is probably needed as well.
You talk about Trent. Just a quick word on your compatriot, Andy Robertson. Mm-hmm. Where is he at in terms of his Liverpool career? Have we seen the best of him now as a regular? Because it feels like, it's a very important season for him. He is exactly the same player as he was 3 years ago. Right? He's just the same. He does exactly the same things. So why is he not creating 20 to 30 goals a season now? People must be thinking, well, that'll be him. He's losing it a bit. Is it because the front three have changed?
Exactly. So if you've got a player in front of you and you play in a sort of way where the player in front of you, fullback, he's always moving in, you have got acres to run into. And if you play in a style of team where all you're doing a lot of times pinging that ball over that back area and you run into, and the space is there, you can look great. Andy wasn't dribbling around 4 players again. Andy was arriving there like a rocket and putting great balls in. Andy's no different now. However, when you've got the wingers, etc., they've got in front of them just now, they do go inside, but they go inside later. There's no space. Well, I say there's no space. There's far less space for him to run into. So it's a different style. So Andy, he's good enough. He's a good defender. He'll get up sometimes. But if you adapt the team to the way Klopp's team played, then Andy's back in there again. He'll be fine. I watched him a lot with Scotland. He's still doing it with Scotland. Don't worry. It's still there. He's flying.
But the question is, Klopp's not there.
Klopp's not there. The style's there, not there. He won't make as many goals as he did before. But is that because he's a lesser player? Or is that because the style's changed? It's the style.
Yeah, okay. Their arch rivals, Manchester United, we've barely spoken about, but Erik ten Hag has been given the vote of confidence. But is it the most convincing of alliances with him and Ineos?
Hands up, I didn't think he'd be here. I thought he'd be gone by now. Ineos are clever, you know. What they can now do is say, right, okay, sit back, and if he doesn't get it right, they can say, no, they're man. You know, had they got him out now, which most big takeovers do pretty quickly, for somebody who's not been doing brilliantly well, and by the way, this is all with the caveat, it is Manchester United we're talking about, so the expectations are huge, or should be huge, because of the worldwide club. But they've been quite clever. All right, you stay there and you run it for a wee while. We'll give you the players that we want to give you. Again, very noticeable Ten Hag over in America there, having a wee dig himself. and that almost gets back to what we're talking about with a number of teams now. You're getting a lot of these name managers who expect control. Sir Alex Ferguson always wanted control. All these, the big ones want control. You ain't getting it. You're not getting it anymore. The people that run the clubs, we'll have that. You just do what we tell you to do. And it's upsetting for the transitional managers, the ones that aren't like that. The clever ones manage it. Ancelotti, fabulous at it, fantastic at it. But Ten Hag's right in the middle of it. The next guy that comes in after Ten Hag, now we won't be shocked.
Is he going to see the season out, by the way?
I don't think so. But then again, I didn't think he would start the season. So unless they do incredibly well, no, he won't. I don't think so. And I think they will bring someone who mirrors what they want, but also won't be leaving little bombs here and there and cause embarrassment to the club. These people that run these industries, they don't like it. They don't, and not only do they not like that, they don't put up with it. They will get rid of anyone who they think is undermining them. So I think that's what will happen. If he doesn't do well, I suspect Ten Hag will say, well, I told them what they wanted to get, they didn't get him. And if he says that, elbow.
You touched upon it earlier, they've already started on the back foot. New £52 million signing from Lille. Lenny Yoro's already out. He's had his operation. He's not going to come back until at the turn of the year. I think 3 months. He's going to miss a quarter of the season. Rasmus Højlund out for 6 weeks. So the first few games, he's not going to be there. You know, but they have got Jadon Sancho.
Yeah.
It looks like, you know, maybe they've built bridges. And do you see him staying at United beyond this window? Only because lately, in the last 24 hours, he's been linked with PSG.
Well, PSG offer a hell of a lot of money, then that is the temptation. That's when it's completely up in the air. He's probably an improvement. I mean, I'm just not sure Anthony did enough. Nowhere near enough. For a player who cost that much, he didn't choose the price, but when he first came in, there was one obvious trick, and there's still one obvious trick, you know, and you can't, at the top level, you need to do something else. The analogy is Saka. Saka liked a similar sort of trick, and he put the ball in the top, and as he did so with England during the Euros. But the reason why he was able to do that is because he started doing other things as well, and dragging space. So he sometimes goes down the line, sometimes does other things, uses underlaps and overlaps. Anthony doesn't. And that's the problem they've had. They've not really got enough out of some of those players. And I'm not sure there's enough there. Certainly there isn't enough there at the moment with the injuries to suggest that they're going to be chapping the door at the top 4 at the start of the season. But, and again, you wouldn't be surprised if they got another big name striker in that would give a little bit of help there. Or what if Marcus could come back? If you got Rashford back to what he was at his very best, if you can do that. And with Marcus, I suspect it's more of a mental thing than anything else. If he's in a good, happy, strong place mentally, he is just fabulous. And when he's not, we can all see it. And there's no bad feeling about it. Everyone looks and goes, "You okay?" You know, we all feel the same. We want it for him because
we know it's there.
He's one of the good guys as well.
Yeah.
So that's the other job he's got. But there's too many ifs there. At the moment, there's far too many ifs.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there was talk going into the summer about this exodus of players, a refresh, you know, moving on Casemiro, Anthony, Rashford, but they're all still there. But you feel some more of a chance than others, which is quite interesting. Now, look, Aston Villa's the only other big contender at the top end, one of the biggest spenders. Unai Emery's really going for it, got Champions League football. He's brought in Ian Maatson. He's got Onana from Everton. Yeah. There'll be one to look out for. I just need any dark horses, if there is such a thing.
It's a hard one to call just now. I don't think there's anyone in the lower part of the league that's going to really jump. You wouldn't be shocked if Brighton suddenly had another lovely season. But you also wouldn't be shocked if they fell back, you know, because it's hard to keep on going at that sort of level. Oddly enough, the dark horses are, I think, with the madness that surrounds Chelsea. If it was any other situation with the changes of managers, the huge numbers of turnovers of players over 2 and 3 years, the fact that a lot of them haven't done well enough, you had all those things together. The fact that had you not had Cole Palmer in that team last season, they would have been bottom half comfortably, I think. I don't think it's been vicious. I think it's just true. But, and it's that big but, there's some players in there. Some players in there.
You got a fair few to choose from.
And you do not pay for them. But there's a team, there is a team in there. So.
Okay, and just to round this bit off now, obviously relegation. Who are the 3 to go down for you?
Vicious though it sounds, the 3 that come up are the 3 most in danger. I have a particular love of Leicester, right? It's a weird thing to say.
I always liked you, Pat.
like many people, for a long time they were second favourite teams because of what happened. The Premier League was never ever supposed to be won by anyone else except that lot. And suddenly Leicester changed everything. And it's just the best fairy tale I've just about ever known in football. And it still is. Never ever forget it. And I'm sure you won't forget that because I've just remembered you're a Leicester fan. So I wanted to be them, but they've lost the manager. You know, you think, oh, really? Do we need that? Dewsbury Hall last season was brilliant. I just love him as a player. Now I'm biased now.
You've got a good player now.
He's a player. So that's another thing that's in Chelsea's favour. So that kind of hurts. There was lots of questions being asked about, you know, finances of teams coming up. Leicester particularly, wasn't it? That's not going to work.
There is a points deduction hanging over them.
Yes. So that, and it hurts that. Southampton's always going to be tough. Ipswich have been out for a long time. It's a big call. The manager, Kieran, stayed, hasn't he? Which was a shock to many of us because a lot of us thought he was going to go to Manchester United. But if Forrester, because of this hard-bitten feeling they've got, and by the way, what a place to go and watch at the moment. It's scary. It's frightening in there some days. And I've been at the games at the end of the season for the last couple of seasons.
Oh, so when they stayed up against Arsenal?
Yes,
that win.
I was at that game.
Yeah.
So I was at that game. And that was just, that was your eyes were bulging. It's one of the great things about the Premier League. There are some places where it's not always the greatest atmospheres. Let's whisper this, right? But there are some places where it's brilliant. And Forest in those situations is a brilliant, brilliant atmosphere. And because it's Elliot Anderson, I think is a far, far better player than people know about. If I had to say a surprise player, I'd say Dewsbury Hall, Elliot Anderson. Surprise players from the lower parts that people kind of think they know. Leicester fans know Dewsbury Hall, but Anderson, Newcastle fans have seen bits of him. He is some player. And it's only because of where he plays, and they are so well stocked in that area. they've let him go. And it's not.
What do you like about him?
Match intelligence is up there. His ability to work with the player in front of him is very, very special. Now, someone who played wide attack, the guy beside me, behind me, be a fullback, be a midfielder, you got intelligent to know where to move all the time. You know where to supply, you know where to vacate space. I'm watching that all the time because I know what you need there. He's spectacularly good at it. And again, the story, if I go back to the story, I remember watching Cole Palmer. No, he's not as good as Cole. But I remember watching Cole Palmer, and he'd just been, I think his second game for Man City, come on as a sub, skinny kid. I think he must have gave the ball away 3 times and made 1 pass. And I've said in the commentary, I think I've seen the new Kevin De Bruyne, and they're giving it, what? It's not that. He saw the passes. Didn't make them, he saw them. And he chose right. Every time that anyone got the ball, they looked up and they found them. And you think, well, that shows you're a player in any team. But when that team's Manchester City, you're a player. So you don't even need to look at him. You know he can play because footballers don't give you the bullet of sympathy, right? It just doesn't happen, right? So you look at these little things. Watching Elliot Anderson every single time. Every player that plays alongside him wants to play with him. They really want to play with him. But there's just no space just now because they are. Harvey Barnes, who you will know very, very well. And they're just completely spoiled on that left-hand side. So he's made way, but he's a special player.
Right, we'll have to leave that there. So you think actually the 3 to go up will go down?
If you had to push me on it, that's where I'd go at the moment.
All right. For now, Pat, thanks very much indeed. So that's Pat's prediction for the up-and-coming Premier League season. I hope that certainly whetted the appetite. In a few moments, we'll be looking at Pat's personal story about becoming a professional footballer, and he was very different to his teammates, let's put it that way. You're watching In the Zone with Gambling Zone, your trusted online gambling comparison site. Welcome back to In the Zone. My guest today, former Chelsea, Everton, amongst others, winger Pat Nevin. Pat, let's talk about your journey.
I never use cliches, and that is one of the biggest cliches in sport.
Okay, well, let's talk about your kind of your growing up as a footballer. Then you called yourself the accidental footballer, which of course was one of the names of one of your books. Yeah. Why accidental?
In simple terms, it's quite true. I'd never wanted to be a footballer. That sounds a horrible thing to say to so many kids, boys and girls out there who want to be footballers and dream of it. And you think, well, you're not very grateful. I'm extraordinarily grateful. I loved playing football. You could tell by the way I played, the joy of it. I just never thought of doing it as a profession. I did it because I loved doing it. And even when I was young, I ended up signing for Celtic when I was quite young. I was an S-firm. My family had all gone on to do university degrees, etc. So it was never a thought of, right, well, I'll go and play football. I'll just go and do the education and I'll do the football for fun. So it was always the thought. So even when I got to 16, there was a chance I would have signed for Celtic. I'd made the decision, no, I won't. I'm going to finish the degree. I just do the football for fun. It's kind of odd because I've no interest in fame. I never had. Money, just enough to get by. That'll do. I'm kind of not very materialistic type person. I like the things that I enjoy. And playing football was one of them, one of many. And you can do that with your mates. Or you can do that in front of 70,000 people. You can still enjoy it. Anyway, so what actually happened then is I went, started doing the degree, but got noticed eventually by a lovely man, Craig Brown, watched me play in a game. He became Scotland manager, but he was the Clyde manager then. And he offered me 30 quid a week to play part-time for Clyde. And I said, no, I'm doing a degree. And he said, no, part-time. It means you don't need to finish your study. You can carry on studying. Really? He said, I'll give you 30 quid a week. And I went, where's the pen? The albums I can buy with that, because I was a big music fan as well. So I was 17. And this perfect world had never occurred to me that I could actually play football, get paid for it, and continue studying. So that's where it started. But the weird thing, I tried, it's a terrible line, but I'm going to have to use it again. I tried really hard at that point in time not to be a professional footballer and failed. Because I kept on thinking, well, the first year I got player of the season for the league that we're in. And then we won the European Championships under 18 Scotland, and I got player of the tournament. Some bloke called Van Basten was playing. Whatever happened to him?
Yeah,
that's what I would say. So all these players are playing. And I'm trying to keep this kind of nice, wee, quiet thing going, and it's like, this is not working. And Chelsea came in to buy me. And this is why I can prove that it's not a nonsensical line or a story. I turned them down for a year, an entire year. No, I'm not going. I'm finishing the degree. And they couldn't get their head round it. And Clyde
Did they look at you like you were mad?
They never got close enough to look at me, but Craig Brown, he got it. He'd been a lecturer himself at college, so he kind of got where I was coming from. But he kept on saying, look, have a go at football. You know, you're good at it. You never know. Anyway, a year later, Chelsea pushed on again, and I thought, okay, I'll have a wee 2 year sabbatical from the studying and go and have a kickabout down there, because, you know, you never know. I mean, I'm a kid. I cost buttons, absolutely. So I'm not expected to get in the first team. I'm just a youngster, 18, 19. So I went down. There is some truth in the argument that part of the reason I went down is because you could see more gigs in London than you could see in Glasgow.
Yeah, we should add at this point, for those 1% who are watching or listening, you're a massive music fan.
Yeah, big. My hero when I was growing up would have been John Peel. It wouldn't have been like, a big football player. So I loved football as well, and Kenny Dalglish.
You're very much into arts, aren't you?
Yes, and I don't think that makes me unusual, but it did.
But within the football community, it did.
Yeah, maybe that's why they nicknamed me Weirdo at Chelsea. And I was like, no, I'm normal. You're all weird. It's just you lot. But they kind of didn't dislike me for it. They just thought I was a kind of odd curio inside this world. But see, if you play football and you're dedicated to it, and you can play a bit, and you're adding something to your group, and you respect them, which I always did, you'll not have a problem, because it's a harsh life, and it's very, very competitive. But fortunately, it was the one area in my life that I felt hugely competitive. Off the field, no arrogance at all. On the field, even at 19, don't care who you are, I think I'm better than you. I mean, how do you get those two personalities? It's like a complete dual personalities.
Yeah.
As soon as I walked off the pitch again, it's a quite wee guy again. But on the pitch, I don't care who. I've been playing against the best fullbacks in the world. Come, I'll take you.
Where does that confidence come from?
Don't know. That's a great question. I think part of it is I had some advantages that others didn't. I had a fallback. With them, if they make mistakes and don't get in the team and it doesn't work, they've given their life to it. Me? Go back up the road. Go to Scotland.
You had a safety net. Yeah.
You got a massive safety net. And I often tell that, you often, young sports people out there, and it does sound like a dull line, stick in with your studies, you never know. It made me a far better footballer, because I could relax. They'd all be running out, all tense and all the rest of it. And I'm running out like, it's cool, gives the ball. And it's kind of, and fans kind of see it as well. If you're a fan, you want to see a personality on the field, don't you? Now, your personality may be a big centre back or the tackler, but you kind of want something different. You don't want automatons, do you? And I think the Chelsea fans right at the start they were lovely to me. I got player of the year the first year. I wasn't even supposed to get in the team. So it was an extraordinary kind of, I'm not doing it, straight up in a line like that. We won the league to get promoted, because they were
second division.
Yeah. I got player of the year. But then immediately, from a guy who was a student, not expecting any of this, the next game, the next season, was against Arsenal at Highbury, as it was then, and the biggest league, and it's Chelsea-Arsenal. And if you're going to get spooked, that's the time that you get spooked. I was playing against Kenny Sanson. Fabulous. I mean, one of the best in the world. I thought, no, this will do. And maybe it goes back to one thing you asked the question very quickly. When I was young, I'd done a kick competition when I was 10 or 11 in front of 75,000 fans, and took 10 penalties, scored them all, and wasn't worried. This was before a Scottish Cup final, and thinking, oh, this is all right. And I remember playing against Mexico, Aztec Stadium, under 20s.
Wow.
100,000 people. They rioted. I put a cross in, flicked on it near post. Stevie Clark scored to beat the Mexicans. They rioted, went mad, tried to kill us. I thought, well, why worry about anything if you've gone through that? So I think it's when you go through traumas and extreme things very young, it becomes the norm. And maybe that's what helped me as much as anything, as well as having a safety in it.
When you finish playing on a Saturday afternoon, would you watch football obsessively?
I had an interesting
Did you have a keen interest in the game? I'll tell you why I asked that, because now there seems almost a stigma attached to those footballers who say, I'm not bothered by football.
I didn't. No, I'll tell you what I did do. It's a brilliant question, Manish. I'm very impressed with this question.
I have one every million.
No, it's very specific, and it always has been, and it's still the same specific thing with me. I'm not really that interested in the personalities. I don't really have a great, I kind of see them. I worked with them for 20 years. They're just blokes, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really that interested. So I'm not really that bothered unless it's something really interesting to say, right? And if they're doing the PR stuff, I'm not interested at all, because that's just PR. And I would have finished the games. I may or may not have watched Match of the Day or whatever it was that night. Probably not. I went to see a movie, I went to see a gig, right? I then went to the manager and got the video of our game, and then went through every bit of the video twice. This was when video had just been invented, and I cut it, pasted it, got 2 video machines, learned how to make them.
What?
I did all this when I was like 19. No one knew what videos were for, but we had a locked off camera at Stamford Bridge for all the games. And what I did was I studied every single move that I did. That doesn't work, don't do it. That doesn't work, don't do it. So people say, oh, you're a very natural footballer. Yeah, there was a bit natural there, but also very specifically, that works. Why did that work? Right, learn that. Use that in that situation. So I structured it all and cut it all together. And I did that throughout my entire career. Made sure I know what was working with it, against it. What I didn't have until much later, I never watched the opposition. I didn't care. I'm your problem. You're not my problem.
There's that confidence again.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing. So it comes from the fact that I had the love of playing. I now, for the last 20 odd years, I go and watch games, I cover games. If you've ever heard me do commentary, you'll hear the enthusiasm. It's not faked. I love good players. I love good, interesting technical things. I love seeing something I haven't seen before. I love sharing that with people. And the joy of that, that's my joy, to get that. If you say so-and-so's going out with so-and-so, and I don't care. See, I won't even know.
No.
But that's why, I'm not saying there's a right and wrong way to do these things. And I think there's a big, big part of it, that the personal side of it that spun, did I say that? But the personal side of it that is thrown your way. Yeah, I know it sells. It's good, but it didn't interest me greatly. But I think there's enough. And that's why we were talking earlier about the Premier League last season. Boy, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Because it was exciting, because there were some great moments, because there were some great players. I'll go and watch Cole Palmer every day of the week. I'll go and watch Eze every day of the week. There's just these guys will do things that still entertain me.
So books, films are your other hobbies.
Yeah. Writing usually.
Travelling, writing, DJing.
Oh, the DJing's a nightmare, right? Because it's one of the things I've done.
First of all, what music do you DJ?
Well, first of all, I've been DJing since I was like 16. So it's not a new thing, right? Back in the old days of vinyl.
But I think once you stop playing, it takes on a whole new light, right? Pat Nevin's a DJ,
well,
everybody.
It didn't. For years and years, I'd always just kept doing it. And then I did this gig one night when it was a festival. There's bands who I like Bell and Sebastian and Cameron Stewart and Franz Ferdinand, Julian Cope for Teardrops. A lot of bands that I kind of liked were at this festival, and I was the DJ in the last night. And it was mad. It was brilliant. And all the bands came as well. And there was about it must be 800 or 900 people in there going mad. And it's one of those nights where everything you put on the place just erupts. Fantastic night. And, but the next day, this was down in somewhere just, I'll come back to a minute. One of the old Butlins places, actually.
Right.
Minehead. That's where it was,
yeah.
Brilliant night. So was driving back up the next day because I was doing Arsenal versus Manchester City the next day in my other job, but they didn't know I'd done the DJ, right? And I've got there, my phone started to go mad, absolutely mad. That was when Twitter was born.
Right.
Nobody knew I did it, but after that event, people had got into Twitter, and as soon as I get out, that was it, it was out. And I'm saying, this isn't a new thing. This is something I've been doing for decades already. But it's great. But what it does is you get to meet really nice people. You get to play some of your favourite songs dead loud. What's wrong with that? At the Euros this time, I was DJing in Munich before it. And there was this great moment where you have to, if you're DJing, I don't know if you do any yourself.
No. Funny enough, I've got other half. She's very keen. She's got the decks and everything. Right. But she's a surgeon by day and...
Yeah, I was going to say, see, I like that. I knew your wife was a surgeon. And to say, because when you say, oh, you're a surgeon, everyone thinks, oh, well, you must be that, and that.
Yeah, no.
No, you shouldn't be. No. You should have other things.
No, but then there's an art form to what she does. And therefore, I think music is also a second
it also gets you out of it as well.
Yeah.
Takes you somewhere else. Anyway, I was in Munich the day before Scotland's first game against Germany. And I'm supposed to be DJing, right? And they've said, could you come on about 8 o'clock? Now, this night is already gone a bit mad because the Scots were going for it the night before the game. So I'm getting the decks already and I've got USBs out and had some CDs. And the guy came up and he said, I've looked out and I thought, there's actually a bottle of whiskey laid out for every single person here. A bottle. And there were drinks. And there was lots of other things going on at this night. I mean, it was really interesting. Brilliant night. There's bands on and things like that. Could you come on at 8, Pat? Could you come on at 10? 12 o'clock. Can you come on at 12 o'clock, Pat? And I'm looking down at the people I'm supposed to be DJing. There's a lot of young guys there, a lot of very wealthy businessmen. But there's also Sir Alex Ferguson's. David Coulthard's there. Half of the Scotland rugby team's there. And all the big face, all famous names of it. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I've got a DJ for all these people. I'm not nervous or worried about the fame. I'm just thinking, what the hell would you play that they're all going to like? It's a weird audience. Anyway, because they were all throwing it back and having a great time, I come on at 2 o'clock. No one has any memory of anything I did.
So the whiskey did you a favour then?
I could go say that. I liked it. It was great. But it's funny. So you do those sorts of things that are your loves and your passions and your things that you like to share. And music's one of them. And it's my passion, my love is if I can give somebody a piece of music, like if you say, oh, I like so and so, and I say, well, have you tried this? Somebody's terrible stitch. I made such a mess of the start of that gig. I played Kraftwerk's Das Model in German to start with, right? Nobody noticed, right? And then I thought, right, I'll just go and play with my own stuff. And the next one was a band called Public Service Broadcasting, which is a really good song. Except that I mistakenly hadn't thought of the name of the song. So you shouldn't play Spitfire in Germany. I didn't mean it. No. It's a great tune. Yeah. It's probably it's a finisher for me and a starter. And it wasn't meant as a thing. Everyone was so drunk they never noticed, and neither did I.
Oh, well, that's fine then.
That's okay then. So it wasn't meant in any bad way. Yeah. But anyway, so with all these kind of wild things going when you do it, but you meet interesting people, but there have been times where I've thought, we're chatting where we are just now, about 2 miles just behind your head, maybe even just a mile, is one of the places where I DJ regularly in London, and. I can remember one night, and it was myself and Guy and also Colin Murray.
Yeah.
3 of us were all on, and what we were doing, there was this treble thing where I'd play one, then back to, and you have to link from the one before.
Oh, I love that.
So you're in the top of your head and you're moving things really quickly. And the place was rocking and it was jazz, and fantastic stuff. And then I've realised, 3 a.m, I'm in Dalston. I'm supposed to be doing the midday game at Liverpool tomorrow. What am I doing? So I was maybe a wee bit croaky the next day after that one. So I tried to be a wee bit more sensible about it these days. But you've got to live life and love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that there are so many facets to you, Pat. I just got to ask you one last question. Why did you never go into football management?
Never wanted to. I became a chief executive for a period of time.
Yeah, Motherwell, wasn't it?
It's a simple question. It almost relates to what
But the thing is, your reading of the game is so good. And, you are lauded for your insight as a commentator. And that's not lost on me. I mean, you will say something that isn't necessarily obvious. But why did you never take that into the dugout?
Hopefully I've got enough knowledge of myself to say I've got the wrong personality for it. There are certain personality traits that you really do need to have to be into management. You have to have a real hardness about you. You have to have it. You can be nice, but you've got to be hard. You've got to be willing to make terribly difficult decisions in other people's lives that's going to hurt them, and do that constantly. You can have feeling, but it can't affect your judgment. It's not my personality. The other thing is what we've been talking about before. I've got other interests. If you're a football manager, you're 24/7. For as long as you're doing that,
you're all in.
Because if you're not all in, you're not any good. So absolutely never crossed my mind. But most of the other things that are vaguely in my mind, like becoming a writer, becoming a journalist, all those sort of things, working in TV and radio and that, I've done all the ones I wanted to do, or most of them anyway. So I'm not complaining about it.
No.
And remember, how long does the average manager last?
Yeah.
Most of them don't last long.
No. So we're talking about Chelsea again. We're going to have to leave it there. Pat, I have thoroughly enjoyed the last, what it feels like, only 90 minutes. I could have gone on for another couple of hours at least, but you've been a brilliant guest. Thanks for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure.
I've been chatting to Pat Nevin, who's been in the zone with Gambling Zone, your trusted online gambling comparison site. I'm Manish Bhasin, and I'll be back very shortly.